Hey guys, it's Jay, here with another review video. Before the review begins, I'd like to ask if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and share with others. Without further ado, on to the vid. The episode begins with the teeth of the ash closing over the shop. Azam, while yelling no, presses against the teeth and asks Lewis what he is doing to let him out and fight with him. He ignores Azam's plea, but looks over and questions why William and his daughter Alia are there. He then steps down, and Vaal says, "A welcome is in order, but you should not be here, Lord Hemlock. You arrived just in time. Or is it a delay on my part? Engai Meki, you failed to secure this place in time. Or was it intentional? You sensed him approaching, didn't you? I will take your other arm for this treachery." As we see, Engai Meki no longer has his right arm. Vaal continues by saying he always knew Engai Meki was the smartest of the Meki brothers, and that he always formulates schemes to defy him. He says his defiance is a thorn to them, but the damage he does is insignificant, and that he acts knowing how important his talent is to their plans. But they will take it from him soon enough, and that every delay he causes does more harm to himself than to Vaal. Vaal adds should he remind him what's at stake if he grows weary of his antics, and what he cannot afford to lose. Engai Meki responds by saying he will do as Vaal says, but he will never bow to him, and that he held his dome open long enough for Lewis to arrive, and that it may cost him his arm, but whatever it costs Lewis to save the others, he best pay it. He adds that once he covers that place, Lewis will truly be alone, and for that he is sorry, but he has someone he must protect. He then activates his Inturium exclusive dome, causing Lewis to look up at the sky. Vaal says, "And so it begins. No one will come for any of you. This is your end. Even Engai Meki knows it. I had hoped to kill Kidding alone, as more than one of his packmates dead would cause Ilios to hunt us, but I should be able to manage. You see, the Ilios vessel is at his breaking point. His rage will burn even code itself, and I desire that greatly." Lewis responds with, "The Shadow, the blood monarch of before the times of war, the one who hides just as brazenly as he speaks, only coming into play when a great change must be made. You're more afraid of Shea Hart than you were of Leo Thomas, correct? Men who can end you. You view yourself so highly that if you fall, you believe the ruin of your organization is to follow. Knowing this, the tales of your defeat at the hands of Lord Grimson must crush you. From what I heard, you were broken by him." The scene then changes to a day earlier, with Kaguya leaning against the wall. He asks how long is this going to take, as the men grow weary, and they cannot move unless his lord is ready. Kaguya then looks towards a pool of blood, and as it bubbles, a figure slowly rises from it. As they do, Kaguya questions if it's time, as their strength and youth have returned. And though that's wonderful, he may understand why the men aren't so stoked about his methods. After all, it cost the blood of almost half of their troops. Vaal says that it still isn't enough, and that they ought not to question Lord Thanatos' practices, as they have brought them this far. He adds that they should be honored that their blood went to something greater than themselves. Back in the present, Vaal goes to grab his sword and says killing Kidding is personal, as the last bearer betrayed him, as she could not fulfill her mission due to love, and that what she felt for Abijah had no business getting in the way of his plans. He adds that Grimson was nothing more than a setback, and that his sacrifice has nearly been eclipsed as his power grows. He says his immortality has not returned to him. He does not need it to end any of them. So Lord Hemlock come forth as he hears he has no heir. Lewis looks back towards Azam, who says not to do it. He then looks down and begins to activate more of his talent. And as ash flows from him, he says, "You have misjudged me, Rank Zero. It is true I have no heir of my own, but that does not hold me back from dancing with death. You see, survival against you was never my goal. In fact, it's not even necessary. With this level of destruction and your chi having been detected, a god tier will soon arrive. All I have to do is keep you here until the sun is risen. In your defeat by the hands of Lord Grimson, your flaws have been known to men. Sunlight greatly weakens you. If I draw out every last bit of your strength and hold you until then, you won't be able to stand against the lords. I may not win, but you will remember me, Vaal Vegizaka." Lewis then calls the name of his talent, and an ashen creature forms. He says to himself, Vaal is hunting the pack to get to Shea, and if he does this right, the rest will live, as Shea cannot bear any more grief. The souls of the male members of the Hemlock family then stand with Lewis, as he asks them to lend him their strength one last time, as he will be by their side soon. The first ashen creature roars, and two more begin to take shape. Vaal tells Dr. Hanzo and Engai Meki to get to a safe distance, as the Lord of Ash has challenged him. He then raises his sword as blood spills from it, and tells Lewis that he will play his game, and since he started with his greatest card first, allow him to counter. He then summons Dothanil, and as blood tendrils appear, he adds that he has brought enough blood for Lewis. He then says, "Blood and ash will clash, and through this, I will erase yet another family talent from the planet. You may fight valiantly, but it will mean nothing. Your line will perish. Your only hope, young Lord Hemlock, is to bow. Join us. Serve Lord Thanatos and secure your family's existence for millennia to come. Do not let your name fade from history like ash. Lewis draws his bow and tells Vaal to shut up and fight. The creatures then ready themselves and attack Dothanil's tendrils. Lewis dodges a tendril himself and fires his arrow, though Vaal blocks it and says, "Here ends the reign of the Ashen Fathers," as he squares off against Lewis. Now, onto the highlights. Now, this episode has some things that could be easily glossed over, so that is mainly what I want to talk about. First, I want to look at Engai Meki. Now, he was shown in Sabito and Mei's flashback, specifically in episode 73. From how he's been used so far, it's clear to me that his purpose is to trap Vaal's opponents or keep things hidden in the case of the explosives that were under the stadium. He does this through his talent, which is what I want to look at. His talent is known as Inturium and is a void type. It is an ancient talent that causes all matter within its grasp to become non-existent to the outside world by vanquishing it to another void. This, by definition, means anything inside the exclusive dome no longer exists in reality, as it is being put inside another dimension. Now, I've seen people try to use the fact that since it's not stated that one can't simply leave the dome, to add on to why Sabito dying in the manner he did was bad, as why wouldn't he just run away instead? But I want to use some of this new understanding we have on his talent to correct this outlook. Now, in my last video, I mentioned how the dimensions of void type talents can only be accessed by the user. The abilities of that dimension are directly tied to the user, just like any other talent. This means that Engai Meki is the only one who can access his dimension, and theoretically the only one who could enter and exit it freely. Now, even if you think Engai Meki can't leave the dome, this only adds to the point that if even the user of the dome can't leave, then why would anyone else be able to? As you can't leave a dimension you aren't in control of. Now, you may counter this line of thinking by using the fact that the dome was around the explosives that were under the stadium, yet they very clearly blow up and cause damage to the stadium and some surrounding individuals. However, Engai Meki himself gives us a way to explain how this is possible. He tells Lewis that he held his dome open long enough for him to arrive. This means that the dome was up but not closed, so things could still enter and exit, and that some of the area would still exist in reality. If we apply this logic to the stadium explosion, we can understand how not all of the explosives caused the damage they were intended to. Engai Meki more than likely had his dome up and around the explosives, and instead of dropping it completely, he only opened a part of it, so the resulting explosions could still escape, but the overall damage would be mitigated due to it only being able to come out of one area instead of spreading completely outward like it more than likely should have. So to conclude this part, when Engai Meki uses the exclusive dome fully, nothing can get in or out, and anything inside the dome is invisible to reality, as said by Mei herself in episode 73. But if some of the dome is open, then it's still possible for things to enter or exit, as seen with Lewis and the explosions. Next, I want to look at some of his morals. Now, Engai Meki says two very important things regarding himself. The first is that he will never bow to Vaal, and the second is that he has someone to protect. The first statement is very clearly expressed from the 2 out of the 3 times we've seen him, which would be regarding the stadium and Lewis. While he is still doing what Vaal desires, he's also actively hindering him as well, as Tadomeki says the explosion should have eliminated everyone, even those outside the stadium, but due to Engai Meki's interference, this was not the case. This very action allowed Yukiko to live, and gave her time so Hisame could manifest and protect those around her, and Yukiko herself could later on become another problem for Vaal. And in the case of Lewis, he made the conscious decision to hold his dome open long enough for Lewis to enter and save those present, which has the added effect of forcing Lewis to stall Vaal, so a member of the god tier can arrive. Though considering how Engai Meki's talent works, how would they enter the dome to assist? Engai Meki himself would have to drop some or all of the dome, and considering his actions so far, this may be a possibility. Moving on to the second statement, Engai Meki says he has someone to protect. It's unclear who this person is, but I'd say the most likely answer would be his younger brother, Tadomeki. We know they are brothers because Tadomeki says so in episode 105. Mei also tells us in episode 74 that the bearer of the Inturium talent and his brother were kidnapped years ago, and that he's probably serving them against his will. This adds on to the idea that Engai Meki isn't doing what he does out of his own desire, and is being forced to do so. Him also being in chains while his brother isn't adds to this as well. And since they were kidnapped years ago, it's very possible that while Tadomeki was easily convinced to join Vaal's side, Engaimeki was not, and to ensure he would do what they desire, Vaal threatens the life of his brother, as Vaal expresses very clearly in this episode that he does not need the current bearer of the talent to make use of it, as he can simply remove it and have it be given to someone else. And though Tadomeki is aligned with their goals, that isn't enough from him having his talent taken from him and given to someone else. Next, let's take a quick look at the previous bearer of Kidding. Now, Vaal says killing Kidding is personal as the last bearer betrayed him and that she could not fulfill her mission due to love. Now, the previous user of the Kidding talent was Miranda Selick, whose name we found out through Abijah in episode 98 and who we actually see in episode 99. We also know that Abijah is the one who killed her, as said by himself in episode 68, and seen in episode 99. Now, before I continue, I want to say that I always felt her death was linked to Vaal in some way, as considering how strong she was, I initially thought she might have been someone Vaal orchestrated the death of. However, now we know she was linked to him, as she worked under him. And this adds to why Abijah tells Azam not to explore the ways of the wicked in episode 68, as Miranda did just that. This should also mean that when Abijah says she became arrogant and refused admission to Patmos, that potentially sometime after, she began to work under Vaal, as someone with those qualities would not want to be locked up, and would more than likely align themselves with one who only seeks the free reign of strong Kimyos. Now the question is, what was her mission? I'd say the immediate guess is that she was tasked to kill Abijah, but that might be a bit too obvious. So it's also possible her mission didn't relate to him directly, but he was in the way of her completing her mission, which led to conflict in her eventual death. You can imply based on what Vaal says about her love getting in the way of his plans, that Abijah was a clear problem for Miranda's emotional stability, and that her feelings for him may have been a sort of angel on the shoulder, causing her to not always commit to her missions and only do the bare minimum of what needed to be done. The statement of her loving Abijah reinforces what we actually see when we are shown her death, as not only is she crying, but so is Abijah, a character who has been stoic all other times we've seen him, meaning this moment was very emotionally intense for him. The two of them also share shoulder tattoos, which could be another sign of their love and connection to one another. Next, I want to look at Shay, and what Vaal says about him. He says Shay is at his breaking point, and that his rage will burn even Code itself. This statement foreshadows Shay's eventual turn on Code, however, we have technically already seen this in action. In episode 46, the Ronin version of Shay is seen going against KCG agents. It is also noted by the Private that Shay is known for showing up at other KCG job sites, and because of this, Shay is at the top of Code's most wanted list, meaning Shay is literally burning a part of Code. This all stems from how Shay has been viewing Code since Season 2's finale. Remember, near the end of episode 112, Shay says Code has failed and that they will receive no more trust from him. This mindset is reinforced by what Shay says to Aldrich in episode 115, with him saying he only cares for the longevity of Code's rule as long as they stay true to their purpose, which, as I said in my episode 115 review, should mean by the time Shay is Ronin, Code falls from grace in a manner of speaking. This could result in Shay attacking Code headquarters to some extent, though that may be a stretch. However, something I don't think I've mentioned in a video is that Brent confirmed in the Discord Q&A that Code and Shay are antagonistic towards each other in the future, which is obvious by the things I just stated, but Brent also seemingly implies while they are antagonistic towards each other, Code may not be actively hunting Shay, as he is still trying to fulfill his purpose and defeat their common enemy. Brent likens it to an enemy of my enemy situation, which means while Shay may be a thorn in Code's side, they can't outright say he's a problem if he's dealing with more of Thanatos' minions than they are. Next, I want to take a quick look at Vaal. Now, this episode reveals how Vaal is able to recover his strength and his youth that was implied to happen at the latter half of 116. He does so by bathing in the blood of the troops that were killed, and Kaguya says this is the blood of almost half of their troops. Now, just using the number 8,000, which is the amount of inmates that were freed from Patmos, and estimating what almost half of them would be, which we'll say is 3,700, and using the average amount of blood in the male body, which is 5.5 liters, we get 20,350 liters of blood, which should mean this is the base amount required for Vaal to be back in fighting shape after using blood sacrifice. It's possible that Vaal bathing in the blood instead of drinking it relates to his vampire inspiration, as in some vampire media, bathing in the blood is more potent than drinking it, as the body will absorb it better and faster. This makes sense as Vaal is in a hurry to get back into proper combat strength. While it's clear this blood is used to revitalize him, it is also the same blood he uses in battle. Now we see his swords are entirely made of blood, unlike last season where only the edge was, and I think they, along with himself, act as a way to contain all the blood he has. since it's unclear where the blood is when it's not in use. The swords being made entirely of blood should pose an enhanced form of lethality, as last season he could really only use them in a normal sword fashion, with the enhanced version being a potential exception to this, as it seemingly melts over Shay's shield to hit him. But with these new swords, he should be able to flow blood directly from them and potentially extend the blade's actual length. This could result in more blood spikes coming from the blade themselves, or a sort of tendril-like sword ability. And lastly, I want to take a quick look at Lewis. Now, Lewis forms 5 different creatures, 3 of which we've already seen. The bigger ones should be the Ash Hydras, which he makes in episode 17. The horse is what he makes to catch up to Cass in episode 30, and the pterodactyl-like creature is used in episode 32 to follow Cass into the air. The actual use of his talent we see lines up with some of how I expected him to use it that I mentioned in my video discussing the Wolfpack's new designs. I was expecting him to use it in a grand way, more so to overwhelm his opponents, and I think his opening move aligns closely with that, though I do still think more of this is actually possible, as I don't see him not having more Ash at his disposal to use. So again, I would like to see more overwhelming Ash use from him. The use of his talent also comes with a change in his hair color, with it now turning red. This should show a sort of further evolution and use of his talent, potentially showing mastery of it, and is similar to how Azam's hair turns green when he uses Kidian. I also think this change in hair color is a part of the reason the Hemlocks sometimes have red hair, similar to how Malhazar is more than likely part of the reason the Heart Clan members have white hair. To end things off, I want to say that I'm very excited to see how this fight plays out, and that it's very interesting that Vaal hinted at some of the information regarding Miranda and Abijah. I also enjoyed seeing Vaal actually come out of the blood pool, as it's a really cool scene, but it's nice to see how he actually regains his strength. I'm also wondering which lord would show up near the end of the fight itself, and considering how Abijah was mentioned, and also since Azam is present during this conflict, it very well could be him. And lastly, for the comment of the week, I would like to put a spotlight on Jamie Wilson and Nurksa, who both point out how Vaal seemingly has some respect for Lewis in some capacity. I think this respect he has is similar to the one he gave Sabito, Leo, and Rakesh when they all encountered him, which should show how he respects Lewis's lineage and the strength and the talent they possessed to some capacity. But anyway, that's the video, guys. Let me know what your favorite part of the chapter was in the comments below, as well as how you feel about the things I mentioned in the highlights section. Don't forget to read the actual episode for yourself, and be sure to like it as well. And I will see y'all in the next one.